Welcome to our walkthrough for Smartbuild Systems post frame design. So we're looking at our home screen here. You can have several different styles of starting templates. Maybe you do post frame buildings. You could set up stick frame models. And basically the way starting template works, when you have that type of project comes up and you don't want to have to reset the framing rules to match that type of project, you can just pick that model and start from there. So we also, at the top, we have our home screen, our home button, and we have a jobs menu button. So when you go into your jobs menu, you're going to see all your past jobs, and depending on your permissions, your sales row in your company, you may or may not see other people's jobs on your list. So if you're an admin, you're going to see everybody in your database. So you can pick past projects, you can view them by clicking on the name here. It takes you into a details tab. When you look at the details tab, you're going to see the customer's info, a total price, and some images. And you also see a read-only link. Our read-only link is our viewer feature. So you can share that with a customer. You can email that to them. They can open it up on a mobile phone, on their tablet, iPad, whatever that may be. So that can be shared, and then they can open up this job and view it only. They can't edit it. So going back to the home screen, for this demo, we will go into a post frame project, and I'll just start with my basic model. So we have our 30 by 30 model here. Depending on the size that you set your starting template up, it may open up in a different size. I have mine at 30 by 30 by 10 with a 412 pitch, no overhang. So in most cases, with a standard sales workflow, you'll be working through this main building tab on the right. And if you work through these tabs, generally that is as far as you have to go with your standard projects. So you don't always have to get into the details or the door and window tabs. Packages possibly, and then the job tab is where you finish off your project. So you have to fill in the customer's info and save the project and then get to your outputs. So on the main building tab here, we have the building size. You can specify whether your size is measuring from outside of post or outside of CURT. There's different building practices. So for this project, as I'm entering my size and the length, before I do that, I can go to the bottom here and slide this bar over. Now this refresh bar, this allows me to enter multiple and fill out multiple fields without refreshing the model. So we periodically refresh the model to update your price. If you're doing a live design with a customer and you don't want them to see this price, you can double click on the name of the job and it will hide the price. So this price is hidden at this point. So we have our size here. I can just update the size to 32 wide. I will set the length at 54 and we'll do a ceiling height of 12 feet. So you can also control your ceiling height with wall material. So if you stock maybe 12-foot lengths of metal at your lumberyard or wherever you buy your material, if they stock certain lengths, you can have it adjust the building height based off the wall material lengths. So in this case, I'm going with ceiling height. I have my roof style set at gable. So we can switch this to a shed roof, one single slope roof. We can switch it to a gambrel. We can also switch it to other advanced roof styles. So with a gambrel, we would have a pitch looking like this. You can update the upper slope and the lower slope and where this breaks on the pitch break here. So you can design all types of gambrels, and we can also do a few other styles of advanced roofs. Western, we can do an asymmetric where the pitches may be different on one side versus the other. We can also set it to a offset gable where the peak may not be in the center. And the last style is the Western, which adds a pitch break here. So several different styles. For this demonstration, we're just sticking with a gable style roof that we have here in front of us. And we can adjust the pitch to a 6/12 pitch. You can also do half pitches, or it doesn't have to be exactly right on a pitch. And you can specify overhang size. In this case, I preset my overhang sizes to the standard sizes that I normally sell. 1 foot is pretty common in the industry. maybe 1'4", 1'6", even 2 feet. So with this overhang size, as soon as you set that, you can also adjust that to be advanced. So if you want to do a larger overhang on one side versus front or back, you can change that on a per wall basis. We'll stick with the 1 foot all the way through. At this point, I'm going to refresh my model. Next, we have the roof peak. This is a feature that you may choose to hide if you don't normally use this feature. We can set a peak out or a flying gable. So a peak out basically adds a small barn peak here at the front or the back. So that is what that feature does. On the flying gable, that term refers to a sloped front gable edge. So you can specify if you don't want this edge to be straight and you want it to slope out, you can specify this. So for the roof peak, seldom used, but it is very valuable to have if you build a project like that. So the next step, product systems. This is a very powerful part of the system. Basically, it allows you to make a single change and it will do a lot of work for you in the back end. So to break that down a bit, if you do multiple styles of panels on your roof or on the walls, maybe you do vinyl siding or asphalt shingles, maybe you have a project with board and batten that requires some different trims. So when you come into this menu, providing this is all set up, you can easily select the type of product going on that roof or ceiling or wall, whatever that may be. So when I set this to an ag panel, it automatically eliminates all my other choices in my drop downs. So if we skip ahead to the details tab and go into our roof sheeting, we only see ag panel choices. We don't see anything else. So going back, we have ag panel. We can do the same thing, or if you want to control these all with the master control, you can just set the master control and it allows you to make these all follow. So it's really easy to have these all lined up with just switching a single setting. If you do things like drywall, OSB and plywood, maybe for an interior area, this basically eliminates the need to go change all the trims. So by default, my trims are set to a metal ag panel for interior and exterior all the way around. So when I switch my wall product to a vinyl siding or maybe a smart panel, when I do that, I would have to go through my details tab and go to all my wall trims and switch them from, my metal trims. I would have to switch them to the smart panel trims. And then the same, likewise, I would have to go into the walk door trims and change all those and on and on. And there's a lot of settings to change. And it simplifies this by just saying, no, I want to apply the smart panel to the walls, and then the trims will all follow and be correct. So we can set this to an ag panel, smart panel, vinyl siding, whatever we want. For this case, we're just leaving it set to an ag panel, and we will move into colors next. So for colors, this is directly tied to the product systems. So when you come to your roof colors, you're going to see just your colors available of this ag panel. So it eliminates all the choices of if you have, shingles or other items in your database, you're not going to see those colors here if you narrow it down. Now, when I go to, if I change my roof color, we'll change it to a dark red. And the wall color, same case. When you select the color, it will eliminate other colors that are not part of that system. So when I look at my product systems, I have the wall set to ag panel. So it doesn't allow me to see any of my vinyl colors or smart panel colors, things like that. And again, if you only set up ag panel, that's the only thing you'll see in your color dropdown. So we'll go ahead and set the colors and we'll move on. The accent color, this could be a third color. So if you want to have your trim one color and then have a few other trim items follow this color, you can set them to accent one. And it basically allows you to change multiple items with a single setting. So the accent is a little more advanced feature. Moving into wainscot, you can't change the color until you turn it on. So if we want to make this match this structure, and I had chosen dark red for my trim. So when I choose a wainscot of dark red, now I can apply this to the bedding. So I'll update the model at this point. For the next step, we have upper sheeting. And this is a setting that can be used for multiple different applications. And one thing is if you always run a trim or splash your gable metal at the eave wall height, or if you're wanting to do an eave light material, you can turn this upper sheeting on and you can specify what the height is. And in this case, I'm doing a 12-foot tall building. So if we want to trim this out, I can apply this and we'll get a trim there. For the next step, we have ceiling liner. We can specify what color your ceiling is going to be in the trim. Just by checking it on, it will add the product to the model. For the next step, we have wall liner. By checking this on, it will add the liner product and the framing if you have interior framing turned on. So we may get some interior girts to fasten the liner to. So you can also turn on an interior wainscot, the same as we have outside. In this case, we'll skip over that setting for now. The floor setting, this is intended for portable structures. So if you're doing a floor joist system with runners, even rim boards, that is what this setting is for. So it's more for portable sheds. If you don't do that type of structure, you can hide this setting from your drop downs. So we have our basic model here. We'll get into attached buildings and some of these buttons across the top here. So we have several more settings to go through. We'll start out with attached buildings first. We have 4 types of attached buildings. So these buttons all can lead to the same result. It just gives you a shortcut to get there. So basically, if I want to do a porch, it's telling me it's going to be an open shed structure with no wall sheeting. A lean-to would have the sheeting on the walls, a porch would not. An awning would be the same type of structure with no sheeting on the walls and no framing. So it's self-supported hanging off of the wall. Maybe you call them eyebrows. So these 3 are very similar in types of structures. An attached building could be any type of structure. So when you attach a building, it may be a gable, it could even be an eyebrow. You're just required to fill out more settings to get there. And this gives you more flexibility if you're designing and you're not sure what type of design you want. So we'll start out with a porch here on the left side of the structure. When you click porch, if you want to do a full length porch, you can just pick this left button here and it's going to automatically follow the full length. Now you may also choose to just do custom, and custom allows you to specify the length. Otherwise it's the same as doing full length. With custom, you can specify the length and point at which wall you're putting it on. So you're not stuck with going just on the left. So if I go back to the porch and I switch to just the left, it doesn't give me an input for the length. It already knows that's 54. So if I set this to 10 feet, and in this case, I'm not sure exactly what this height would need to be on the top side, so I can have it calculate that for me, and I could set it at offset down. An offset down of 0 will match up your main roof line. So I had a 612 pitch on my main roof, and for this, I want to break that pitch a bit and flatten it out. So we'll go with a 3 on the porch. To follow the overhang size, I'll stick with a 1 foot. That's what I had on the main structure. And the walls are defaulted to open, so I don't have to mess with that. And the roof framing on rafters or trusses. It can be either one. Some people frame it with rafters, so I'll leave it on rafters. Now the hip corner style, this can be if you want your porch to be hip back to the main building, so 45, 90 degree back to the main structure. And we can look at both styles here. To start out with, I will do a none, no hip, and it's going to be a standard roof orientation. So we have some advanced settings here. We don't want to spend too much time on this. And these can be set as a default, so you usually don't have to mess with them. So my porches are always framed with a 2x6 rafter, 2 foot on center, and I have my standard settings through here. Now you can also choose whether or not you want to, if this roof would be overlapping up onto the main roof, you can have it remove that metal for you, or you can have it open up the wall that it shares. So if I want to remove the metal here, I could set this to open. And I could even remove the framing also by setting it to fully open. So this is just a porch, so it's going to be closed. And then the include back wall would be if we have this porch extend out past the main building a bit, we want to close that back wall. So that's another advanced setting. And then the don't combine walls is another setting that you can use if you want to have a double wall and you don't want this to combine this shared wall. So there's several cases you may use that in advanced designs. So we'll apply the porch at this point. So we have our porch added to the structure. And next we want to look at wraparound porches. And just to speed up this training session, we'll go through and we'll, instead of doing a porch, I'll do a lean-to. And with the lean-to, it's going to do the wraparound feature too. The only difference is the lean-to will be enclosed. So if we want to do a wraparound porch on this front side that maybe travels partial, maybe 16 feet on this side, I could choose lean-to. And in this case, I'll just pick custom so that you can see all the settings that we're walking through. I will start at 0 and we'll set the length at 16 feet and the width will be at 10 so that it matches this structure. So we're starting at 0, we have our 16, we have 10 width. The ceiling height we want to make so that it matches up again. So I'm offsetting down 0 and I'm setting it at 3 pitch. We'll do a foot overhang. And we'll leave this all set as standard. So when I apply this porch, basically a lean-to, in this case, to the model, it will automatically finish out this corner for me. So next we will get into the attached building feature. We now have a porch, we have a wraparound, and it transitions into an enclosed lean-to on this side. If you would want to open up this wall, you can also use this toggle open wall button here at the top. By clicking on it, we can just pick this wall and toggle it open. So moving ahead into attached buildings, we will add an attached building to the back side here and just keep it a standard gable style so that we get a nice valley tying into it. We leave our start point at 8 and we set the length at 38 and the width we can set at 24. So we're just doing a back patio area and we can specify whether or not we want to open these walls or enclose them. So for a patio, I just choose the open. Now you can also change the ceiling height here. You can have it match the main if you want your eave lines all to line up, or if it's dropped down a bit, that's not a big deal. We can leave it at 8 feet. In this case, I'll leave it at 8 feet so that we get a good visual of what it looks like and how Smartbuild finishes that out for you. Again, you have the same settings. You can choose rafters or trusses and then advanced settings. So for the next part, we'll move into openings. We have several types of openings, starting out with the large openings first, overhead doors. You can have your own styles set up in here. If I choose a carriage panel door, I can sort by size. If I want to look for a 10-foot tall door, it sorts down to my 10-foot tall doors. I can choose a 10 by 10, pick the one here at the top. You can include things like operators, hardware items that you specify or sell. In this case, I'll just leave it as my standard hardware, and I have room for a large door right here. So I'll click once here and I'll get a door placed in this back gable. So adding other doors, we can close the overhead door menu for a bit and move into sliding doors. If we want to do a sliding door, we have multiple ways to do sliding doors. Maybe you buy a sliding door kit that is pre-assembled and you're just mounting it on the wall, or we can have Smartbuild build the model for you, and that's by picking standard. So a standard door, you can set whatever height you want, or you can have it match the eave height and just go below the trusses. So I'll set it at max height and we'll do a 12-foot wide. And I'm going with the split door. You can also left or right slide it, but I'll go with the split in this case. And again, same as overhead doors, you can have it bring in the hardware items for you if you set those up in packages. So these are package items that are automatically coming in based off this door size. So I can place this door here in the center of the building. So by default, I'm getting a wainscot material on the sliding door. If we move into advanced edits, and if we want to say that that sliding door only gets a solid color, I can choose my slider 1 and slider 2 and change that and remove the wainscot. So if we want to do a solid color door, we can turn that wainscot off and specify what that color is. So maybe your doors would be the color of the wainscot. So there's all kinds of advanced settings if you want to dial that in. In the case that you want to change a slider panel, whatever change you make to slider 1, it will apply it to the other part, the other half of that split door. So we have a solid color slider here on the gable now splitting. So next we'll move into entry doors and windows. Entry doors, we get the same menu type layout, but it shows different styles of doors you may sell. So if you only have solid and panel, you may only see these two sizes set up. In this case, I have one of each type, or I can just choose a custom opening. So if I don't have doors set up in here and I just want to do a framed opening, I can choose custom and input any size. So for the doors, I would choose a panel door. We'll just stick with the 9-light model, and we'll place it here on underneath the porch. When you're placing a door in post frame, it automatically will try to place it near a post, and the same applies for windows. So when we're placing windows, it will automatically try to avoid a main post if it can. And I'll choose a 36 by 48 window, and you can see it snaps to the center of the bay or near a main post. So if I'm putting a window in each bay here, it's really nice to space them out evenly under this porch. I can spin around the back here and add a few windows around the back. Next, we'll go into the interior wall feature. So by clicking the divider wall button at the top, it takes the roof off so that you can see your interior floor plan. You can set your start point of the wall. You can set your length of the interior wall and the offset of how far it's offsetting from a main wall. You can also specify if it goes to the full height or set the height at maybe 8 feet tall if your building is taller. You can also set whether it has a liner product or a sheeting product or nothing going on either side of this wall. So we have an offset at 24 full length wall, and this allows me to just place a wall here. If we look at how this wall is framed, currently I have it set to a stud frame wall. So my interior wall framing is set to stud frame. We could also switch that to post frame or match exterior. And then going further, we also have rules for interior and exterior stud framing. So I just have it set to match my exterior. And next we will look at adding cupolas to the roof. So we have two different styles of cupolas that we can add, a louvered or a glass window style. When we look at the sizes, these sizes would be set up when you do your setup process, and you would set up the sizes that you sell. So I can choose a 4-foot cupola and just hover over the roof that I want to place it. I can also set it to 2 or 3 and space them evenly and set the location. Next, we'll go into the 2D view. The 2D view allows you to see your interior floor layout and also edit your openings in 2D. So we've added all these windows here to the front wall. If we want to choose them and edit them all, we can delete them all at once and add new windows in. It also allows you to see the main posts. So when you're placing openings, you can see where the opening needs to go related to the main post. So looking at this interior wall, we can also add in new openings in this mode. So if I want to add a 6-panel door, I got my doorknob applying automatically. I could click on this wall and center it with this centering tool, or I can also drag it. If I want to adjust it exactly where it is, I can specify 8 feet or whatever that measurement needs to be, and it will move the opening there. I can also add windows in this mode. You can edit existing doors that you had placed. So by clicking on this door and clicking on the measurement, we can specify where that is. So if I want that exactly 3 feet from that corner, I can move that door, and we can also drag these windows to place them by a main post if we want to do that. So when you're done working in 2D, you hit return and you save your changes, and it takes you back to the main screen. So we can see the edits that it made to the windows and doors that I moved around and adjusted. Next, we'll get into the Details tab, some more advanced settings. This may relate to the options that the customer chooses if you want to set up things like that. And it could be maybe it would be a vapor barrier that you want to apply to the roof. So now, instead of just selecting a metal panel on the roof, you can select the metal panel, maybe with a vapor barrier, and it applies all the materials that you need to install that assembly of items. Wall sheeting, we can do the same thing. We can change and set just the wall panel to have a different product. The liner, if we're using interior liner, we can do the same thing. So all these, you can set them to a product with a fastener, or a product and an underlayment and other items that go with it. We also have settings that relate to this in trims, where if you're doing a ridge cap, it may or may not be vented. So I'm only seeing my ag panel ridge cap options here, and I have two options: vented with a closure and without. So if I choose to vent the ridge cap, it would automatically change my closure item in both wings here to the vented closure. So if at any time, if I want to review that, I can go into my material list and look at that. You can do that by clicking on the job review at the top, and you have all your different categories of items. So we have our sheeting, our trim, doors and windows, and accessories. So I can see I have my vented closures coming in here based off of the trim setting that I changed. We can also adjust door and window settings on a more advanced level. So depending on the product or the configuration that we have, we can adjust the header trims, the trim on the sides of the openings, the trims on the tops and bottoms, and then on the interior of each opening. So we have all these settings for walk doors, windows, overhead doors, and so on. So each type of opening has its own framing rules, whether it's post frame or stud frame, and it has its own trim rule that you can set. So when we look at post framing, we have all types of settings here that you can set to configure the way that this walk door gets framed. So when we dive deeper, we can look at this walk door setting here, toggle the shell off, and we can see this group of settings is determining how I frame my walk doors. Next, we'll get into packages a bit. Packages can be set up to calculate other items that you want to add to the model, whether it's a labor fee, or it may even be things like concrete or lift fees, things like that. So whenever we are working in front of the customer and we have our price here, as we are calculating the project, we can set up automatic labor packages that will calculate the labor for us, or we can just manually set an amount. So if we want our labor to be $20,000, we can put in an amount and it adds it to the job total. We can have the concrete the same way. Maybe it automatically calculates the concrete for us based off of our costs that we put in beforehand, or we can just put a custom amount in the same way we did for labor. For this case, I'll have it calculate the concrete for me, and we'll move on to other settings. So if I want to add in lift fees, crane fees, things like that, I can set this up where I can easily add an amount. Permitting, drawings, the same case, I can add an amount, and it calculates and adds this to my job. So if you are using these labor calculations or concrete calculations, it can really help the way the create option works. So with the create option, it allows you to give the customer several different bids without creating multiple projects. So with our price at the top, the customer may see this price, and before you even give them the bid, you can give them multiple options of maybe to get them under their budget. So I can click the create option here at the top, and I can make any change to this project that I want, and it will roll it back to the point where I click the create option. So I click the edit, and one option that we could do is eliminate this entire back wing. If I would do an option that would change the physical appearance of the building, I may choose to click the print button here, and this gives me an automatically downloaded file into my downloads folder where I get a picture of this option. So now I have what this looks like, because when I go back to the job and I save this option, it will automatically place this structure back on here. So we can give this a name. We can say no back porch. Save that. And it automatically brings the back porch back on. Now, when we go into our job review section and look at the summary tab, we see our option here at the bottom. We also see our packages that we've added as bundles where it itemizes these out. Now, these totals as a bundle, they are included in these numbers at the top. Another way that you can adjust your price to a customer is by double clicking on this grand total, and it allows you to adjust your markup or your profit margin on this job. So if we want to adjust our markup to 20%, we can apply that, and it applies it across the board on all of our products. Next, we'll get to the job tab. And again, this form has to be filled out based off of your required fields that you set up. So in this case, I only have one required field, and that's with the red star. So I save this job, give it a name, and at that point, it allows me to get to my outputs. So when we click on the outputs button at the top, it brings up all of our available outputs that we have set up. Just clicking on a few popular outputs that this combines into a single PDF file. We have a job summary sheet. We have a column layout. All the doors and windows are called out on here. We have a cross corner measurement, all the post spacing measurements. We have cross section details. So each wing that we have, it's showing us the way the walls are framed, the material going on the walls. Gives us an overhang detail. We get assembly details, how each roof and wall section is framed with the materials going in them. We get metal panel layouts, how the metal gets cut for the windows or for the doors, the gable steel, how it gets cut. And we also get some nice images showing the project from a far out view with elevation details from each angle. Next, we can also get an itemized bid that shows pricing. Another popular output is this same type of material list, but in an Excel file. So the Excel file can be set up to match what your point of sale system needs. Maybe if it allows an import file where you can import this file and you don't have to manually enter the data for that material order. So we have all the framing, sheeting, trim, doors and windows, everything in one file. Or you can customize this file where it's just a metal order or just a trim order or so on. We can also set up a proposal type template where you can do a bid. This can be set up in any type of layout that you like. This can be a single page file or multiple pages. And it basically brings the info from the job in where you don't have to type it out. So we've got the siding colors, the roof colors, the materials, the door and window that are in the job, and then some images. You can even have it populate your payment schedule with the total price for the job at the bottom with the place for the customer to sign for acceptance. We can also get these outputs in other formats. So the drawing outputs can come in a DXF file. You can also get the 3D model in a SketchUp file if you use SketchUp. So yeah, all types of formats, different files that we can set up for your outputs. I also wanted to talk about our landscape settings for just a bit. So if you notice on the bottom left of your screen, we have a few buttons. The toggle shell just turns off the metal and the trim so that you can see your framing. And you can just toggle that back and forth to see the framing versus seeing the sheeting. On the landscape, we've added a few more settings. So whether you want to see the landscape or not, you can turn that on or off if you like a nice white, clean landscape. When you turn it on, it does allow you to customize it a bit. And with the settings that you can do now, you can turn the sky on or off, turn the shadows on or off. And we've added trees and shrubs. You can also adjust the tree spacings. So this just adds more trees in the distance and adds more or less shrubs in the distance also. So when I turn these two on and update my model, you'll see that it adds some background vegetation. Next, we want to go into the drawings tab here at the top. This allows you to inspect any certain wall or roof section while you're bidding the job, while you're designing it, just to make sure that you're getting the materials that you want. So you can pick out any wall section that you want. You can click on the wall section in the model or over here on the left. And when you pick that wall section, it gives you a 3D visual here of this wall. And then you can also highlight items to find them in the model. So this is true for assembly drawings in the framing, and it's also true for sheeting drawings to find where certain pieces of metal or trim are going in the model. So going back to the home screen, I want to talk about the different job statuses that you can use. So whenever a job is originally designed, it is in a editable view. You can edit it at any time. As soon as you make that job a quote, then it gives you a notification saying that this job will be locked and you can no longer make edits to it. So the standard practice is that before you hand the customer the quote, you would go ahead and make it a quote so that it locks in all the details of that job, and then you always have it for your records. So with our software being on a server, every user is automatically updated with the current pricing in your database. So if we go into settings and pricing and we make a change with pricing, all your jobs, as soon as you reopen them, if they're not in a quoted status, then those prices will update. So if you make a tweak to any material in your pricing table and you reopen this job, if it's not locked, it's going to show a new price. In this case, if I open up this job and look at it, now that it's locked, it's going to give me a little green icon here at the top. You can always reprice the job. So if the material cost does change over time, it gives you the original price and then it shows you the new updated price. So you can choose to update the pricing. Let's say the quote runs out for the customer and you want to give him a new quote. You could update it and the job is still locked. You could update the pricing and hand them a new quote. You can also put a job in prep for order status. As soon as you put it in prep for order status, it allows you to go into that job, choose materials, and add or delete items to that list. So if you want to fine tune your material list, maybe delete an extra piece of lumber that you're not going to need for the way you're framing it, or add an extra piece of material, anything that you want to add to the job, you can go into your job review, find that item, and you can adjust the quantities in this mode. And when you get your new output, your new material list, it's going to reflect these differences. If you would choose to reprice the job, it's going to reprice it with these changes that you've made. And you can also make a job an order. When you do make it an order, it will show a different status back on your jobs menu. So you can see when the job was made, ordered, or modified last. And this wraps up our walkthrough of Smartbuild for PostFrame. I hope this helps you make a decision on whether or not Smartbuild is a good fit for your company. Thanks again, and God bless.